Hi guys! Today we are going to be learning another way to find equivalent fractions. So far we have been using fractions on a number line as one way to find equivalent fractions, as well as looking at bars like this where we can see that the bars have been the same size and they've been split into a different number of pieces, and we can tell that these are all equivalent or the same. So according to the model, our little helper friend over here is showing us that the models show that 2/3, that's our yellow one, is equivalent to or equal to 4/6. Notice there are 1, 2, 3, 4 out of 6 shaded on that one, which is also equivalent to 6/9. As we can see here, 6 pieces out of a total of 9 are colored. And then our green one down at the bottom is 8/12. So that is also equivalent to all the other ones. So we can see there are 8 green pieces out of a total of 12 pieces. If we look up at the top, we see our lesson objectives. So this is what we should be able to do by the end of this lesson. We're going to be able to use multiplication and division to find equivalent fractions. And we're going to know how to write fractions in their simplest form. And you'll notice that simplest form is also our vocabulary word for this lesson. Okay, our helper friend down here is telling us, I know another way to find an equivalent fraction. Multiply the numerator and the denominator by the same number. And we probably remember that our numerator is our number on top, and our denominator is our number on the bottom. So all we have to do is multiply our numerator by 2, or by any number that we choose, and then also multiply our denominator by that same number, and we will find an equivalent fraction. No matter what number we choose to multiply, as long as we multiply the top and the bottom, the numerator and the denominator, by the same number, we will always find an equivalent fraction. So we can see here, 2 times 2, of course, is 4, and 3 times 2 is 6. So this right here, we just found an equivalent fraction. So that means 2/3 is equivalent to 4/6. Okay, and then over here, we have our 2/3 to start with. This time we're multiplying by 3. So 2 times 3 is 6, and 3 times 3 is 9. So we just found out that 2/3 is also equivalent to 6/9. So that means 2/3 is equivalent to 4/6, which is also equivalent to 6/9. Let's look at a few more examples. So on this page, we have models and multiplication, and we're going to show the same thing. So here, our model is showing us a bar that has been split into 7 equal pieces, and one of them is shaded. So this bar right here is showing us the fraction 1/7. Okay, and then we can see down here that 1/7 is equivalent to, let's find out, it looks like it's split into 14 pieces because it looks like each piece was cut in half. So let's just double check that and make sure. So we know 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. Okay, so this second bar has been cut into 14 pieces, and 2 of them are shaded, which means 1/7 is equivalent to 2/14. And then down here, looks like we split it into even more pieces, so let's count those. We can see that each little section is 3, so let's count by 3s. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21. So that means 1/7 is equivalent to 2/14 is equivalent to 3/21. Now let's show this same thing over here using multiplication. So we're starting off with 1/7, just like we did over here. We're going to multiply 1/7 by 2. So we do 1 times 2, which is 2, and 7 times 2, which is 14. So that is what we're seeing here. 2/14 is equivalent to 1/7. Now we're going to multiply 1/7 by 3. So we have 1 times 3 is 3, and 7 times 3 is 21. So that is showing us this bar down here. Seems like a lot easier way to find equivalent fractions, don't you think, guys? Okay, moving down here to the bottom of our screen, we can see that there is another way to find equivalent fractions. And our little helper is telling us, here is another way to find equivalent fractions. Divide the numerator and the denominator by the same number. So not only can we multiply the numerator and denominator by the same number to find an equivalent fraction, we can also divide the numerator and the denominator by the same number to find an equivalent fraction. Let's take a look what we have here. This model is showing us 6 pieces out of a total of 12 pieces that are shaded, so that's the fraction 6/12. And we have the fraction 3/6. We have 3 shaded out of a total of 6. And then we have the fraction 2/4. So 2 out of 4 are shaded. Okay, so we can see that with the models. Now let's take a look down here. If we start with our 6/12 and we divide each of those numbers by 2, because we know that they're both even numbers, right guys? So we know all even numbers can be equally divided by 2. So we know 6 divided by 2, that really means how many times could the number 2 go into 6, right? So we know 2, 4, 6, it would be 3 times, which makes sense because 3 times 2 is 6. So that's a fact family, right guys? We know division is the opposite of multiplication. So 6 divided by 2 is 3, and then 12 divided by 2 is 6. Because remember, if we divide the top number, our numerator, by something, we have to divide our denominator, our bottom number, by that same number. Okay, so 6 divided by 2 is 3. 12 divided by 2 is 6, of course, because 6 times 2 is 12. Fact family. Okay, so that tells us 6/12 is equivalent to 3/6, which is the same thing we saw over here with our models. And then let's look over here, 6/12 divided by 3 this time. So 6 divided by 3 is, of course, 2. And 12 divided by 3 is 4. So that shows us that 2/4 is also equivalent to these other two. Okay, the last thing we're going to learn about in this lesson is the vocabulary term that we looked at the beginning of the lesson, and that is simplest form. So the way we find simplest form is by dividing. So what it means is when we see a fraction like 2/4, we can look at that fraction and we know that there's a number that will divide equally into both that 2 and the 4. Can you guys think of what number that is? Of course, it's right up here. It's 2. We know that 2 can go into 2, of course. And we know that 2 can also go into 4. So if we were to divide 2 by 2, so 2 divided by 2, that would give us 1. And then 4 divided by 2 would give us 2. Okay, so that leaves us with a fraction 1/2. Is there any number we can think of that would divide equally into 1 and 2? I don't think so. So when you see a number that has a 1 like this on the top as the numerator, most likely, or well, definitely, it's not going to be able to be divided any further. So we know that 1/2 is the simplest form of 2/4. Okay, so the easiest way to find the simplest form of a fraction is to find the biggest number that can divide into both the numerator and the denominator equally. So let's look at this fraction here. We have 6/12. Now, what do you think is the biggest number that could divide equally into both 6 and 12? Do you think, well, we know that 2 can divide into 6 and 2 can divide into 12, right? Because they're both even numbers. But is that the biggest number that can go into 6 and 12? What about 3? We know 3 could go into 6 and it can go into 12 evenly, because if we were to count by threes, we would say 6 and 12, right? 3, 6, 9, 12. Okay, so we know 3 is bigger than 2. Is there another number that's even bigger than 2 and bigger than 3 that can go into 6 and 12? Hopefully you've spotted it by now. It's 6, right? 6 can go into 6, of course, 1 time, and 6 can go into 12 2 times. So that means we want to divide our 6 divided by 6 is 1. 12 divided by 6 is 2. So that means the simplest form of this fraction, 6/12, would be 1/2. Because we know that 1/2, we can't divide that any further, right, guys? Because, of course, there's no number that would divide into 1 and 2 except 1, right? And then we would still have 1/2. So it can't get any smaller than that. Okay, so down at the bottom here, it's telling us to divide to find the equivalent fractions of 4/12. So here's our 4/12. We know that those are both even numbers, so we know that they can definitely be divided by 2. So we're going to do 4 divided by 2. That would be 2, of course. And then 12 divided by 2 would be 6. So we found that one equivalent fraction of 4/12 would be 2/6. Okay, so that's one way to find it. But do you think that that is the simplest form of the fraction 4/12? Is there another number that can divide evenly or equally into 4 and 12? You guessed it, it's 4. If we were to count by 4, we would say 12, right? 4, 8, 12. Okay, so we know that 4 can go into 4 and 4 can go into 12. So let's try that. 4 divided by 4, we know is 1, and 12 divided by 4 is 3, because 4, 8, 12. We would count by 4 3 times to get to 12. So that means that 4/12 is equivalent to 1/3. Okay, 4/12 is equal to 1/3. So if we have 1/3, can we possibly divide that any smaller? No. So we know that the simplest form of 4/12 is 1/3. Okay, guys, this is what our Let's Practice page for this lesson looks like. And I'm going to try and see if there's a way I can get this into Google Classroom so that you can actually turn it in this time. So wish me luck with that. All you're going to do is fill in the green where you see the little boxes, just like the regular Let's Practice pages that we do in class. So you're going to just say how many pieces are shaded out of a total of how many pieces. And then you're going to find that same answer over here by multiplying. Do the same thing on number 2. And then down here at the bottom, it says find the first 8 fractions equivalent to 5/6. So we learned in our lesson today that one way to find equivalent fractions is to multiply the top and the bottom by the same number. So why don't we just start with 2, right? 5 times 2 is 10. 6 times 2 is 12, right? Now let's do them both by 3. 5 times 3 is 15. 6 times 3 is 18, right? So you're going to notice a pattern as you keep doing that all the way across. And I'm hoping that you notice a pattern, because once you do, it will make filling out the rest of these a lot easier. Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed our lesson today. I know it's not the same as being in the classroom, but hopefully everything made sense. And if you have any questions, just email me. Okay, bye.